The long-awaited Disney Plus series Obi-Wan dropped yesterday, and everyone, including myself, had incredibly high hopes for the series. Now, so far, what's been circulating about this show is child actors should not be judged for poor performances, and if you don't like this new character, then you are a racist. Apparently, Disney actually implied that, so it's going to be a pretty good one. I personally thought Mandalorian was an awesome step in the right direction by Disney, and I was hoping that this time around Disney would come into that stride after the very slight stumble of Boba Fett. To some extent, I did enjoy Boba Fett, but these weirdos just completely made it seem off-putting. Unfortunately, I think this series is going to be, and it genuinely pains me to say this, worse than The Mandalorian. I'm a huge fan of Ewan McGregor and, to a lesser extent, Obi-Wan. I think this guy perfectly embodies that character, and his performance in the prequels really was one of the two main emotional anchor points in the entire trilogy for me. So needless to say, you tell me that Hayden Christensen is going to be in Obi-Wan and Ewan is reprising his role as Obi-Wan, and I'm going to be excited. This is a 6-part series, and Disney released 2 parts as the premiere, and it is, so far, in my opinion, incredibly disappointing. Obviously, there are spoilers ahead, so if you haven't watched it or plan to watch it, why would you even click on this video? This doesn't really make sense, man. The beginning of this series actually starts off really good. It shows a group of younglings being taught by a Jedi and immediately being attacked by the 501st who are carrying out Order 66. The scene that follows is great, and it manages to illustrate the overwhelming odds the Jedi were put up against as the clone troopers swarm them and overwhelm them. The group of younglings obviously will have some significance to the story as they seemingly escaped before our jump to the 10 years after the fall of the Jedi. We cut over to Tatooine to find that a group of inquisitors have arrived to hunt a Jedi. The inquisitors in this show are a bit weird, and by that I mean they have to be like Craigslist hires or something, or maybe interns, because they are just really, really bad at their jobs. Allegedly, a Jedi intervened in some issue at a local tavern as he was compelled by overwhelming goodness to do. The problem with this scene is it not only attempts to be intimidating, but the method through which the intimidation is exacted is kind of strange. The Inquisitor leader just goes on a monologue about how to spot a Jedi, implying that they are easily tracked because they help people. This has been a reoccurring theme as of late, as it was in Jedi Fallen Order, where Cal is only exposed as a Jedi because he helps a friend. However, the timing of this event is just a bit weird. The Jedi they are hunting is literally right there, in the tavern, and has yet to move on. Despite having exposed himself as a Jedi, he has chosen to spend his day out in the open in a public place where he had previously used the Force. During this interrogation with the innkeeper, attempting to identify the Jedi, another Inquisitor by the name of Third Sister grows impatient and throws a knife at the innkeeper. The Jedi is unable to not intervene due to the overwhelming goodness in his heart and uses the Force to halt the knife, therefore exposing himself. What follows is what I can only describe as pure incompetence by the Inquisitors. Not only is this Jedi outnumbered, but he is relatively young, which heavily implies he was a former Padawan. He is certainly not fully trained, but with almost comedic low effort, manages to evade these tried-and-true Jedi killers. And this is a recurring theme in this show, by the way. There's a lot of these chase scenes that just don't make sense. Third Sister and the Head Inquisitor are clearly at odds with one another, as the Third Sister is questioning why they are even hunting such a low-life Jedi when they could be hunting big fish like Obi-Wan. But considering the difficulty they are having capturing this one Jedi, I would say maybe they should aim a little bit lower. Now we are finally introduced into Obi-Wan, who now goes by Ben and has resigned himself to a simple life of watching over Luke. Unlike the other Jedi, Obi-Wan does not intervene when he sees an injustice, and is completely devoted to his little corner of the planet. This was a big marketing thing, that Obi-Wan Kenobi is not the man that he used to be. All Obi-Wan does is work and try to provide Luke with toys. He's effectively a Godfather Santa Claus or something. He encounters the hunted Jedi and urges him to devote himself to secrecy, to bury his lightsaber and accept that the Jedi have fallen, and for good. We flash over to another planet where a young girl is being wrapped up in an exquisite gown and clothing. She is being waited on literally hand and foot by servants. Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan plays a prank on her mother to substitute another young girl for herself, while she runs off into the woods to frolic with a robot companion and guess the destination and designation of the starships that dock and leave Alderaan. Now, I think the character of Leia Organa should have not been shown in her childhood, and let me explain why. Leia comes off as a spoiled, awkwardly intelligent child. By that I mean this character effectively gets whatever she wants, whenever she wants, and uses uncanny levels of wit that she should not have. It is exactly what you get when an adult tries to write a child character into screenplay, and there's this uncanny feeling that this adult has actually never been a child. The character of Leia in the original trilogy did come off almost as pompous and annoying, but the point is that she eventually changed, whereas this character will not change. Child actors are children, and the dialogue this character has been given is too complex even for someone raised in privilege and wealth. My reasoning for this will come a bit later, but let me simplify it by saying that the character of Leia fluctuates from unparalleled reasoning and understanding to being completely stupid to once again being perfect in reasoning. To some extent, it feels like they tried to directly copy Padme's dialogue from the prequel trilogy, which to me is just strange because certainly there are similarities between Padme and Leia, but I always considered them independent characters. Leia was not raised by Padme, and most of the behavior she has learned is from her adoptive parents and due to her social status. And this version of Leia, however, seems to be extremely dependent on Padme's mannerisms.
There is a scene where the writers seem to acknowledge the absurdity of Leia's character and the fact that she speaks not like a 10-year-old.
You think the less you say, the less you give away. But really, it's the opposite.
How old are you?
10.
You don't sound like you're 10.
It should be noted that just because you have a line of dialogue acknowledging the absurdity of your own writing does not excuse the writing. They know they wrote her to be too smart and they're playing it off as a joke. Let me be clear. Just because I've seen a lot of people claim that this is hating on child actors just like it was in The Phantom Menace or the prequels in general. I don't hate child actors, and I'm not saying Leia is bad because she's a child actor. I'm saying that child actors aren't good, period. Saying they are is a disservice to actual actors. But with Leia, it isn't the actress, it is the terrible writing. There is a difference. Jake Lloyd's lines in Phantom Menace were appropriately cringy, but also did kind of have the vibe of an actual child.
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
We return to Obi-Wan, who is confronted by Anakin's half-brother and advises Obi-Wan to leave them alone for good. Despite this, Obi-Wan suggests that at some point the boy must be trained. Their dispute is interrupted by the Inquisitors, who literally just start chopping off hands because they are incredibly frustrated that they can't find this Jedi that they can apparently easily track. Third Sister is overly aggressive, but not like in a dark side sense, more of in a just, this character is a bitch sense.
What made Anakin's fall so compelling was we got to experience it from start to finish. We saw him lose his temper and slaughter people out of grief. We saw his desperation to save Padme. So when he finally falls, his rage and anger are understood and almost justified. This character is just angry and mad and holds a grudge, and we don't know why. It is essentially a female Kylo Ren. I think the Inquisitor from Fallen Order, Second Sister, had this down pat a little bit better. She never came off as annoyingly angry, and when you discover her reasoning, you feel some ghost of sympathy for her. Now, this character is fast on track to probably be a rehashing of this exact character from Fallen Order. Not only that, but Second Sister was borderline relentless in her pursuit. She was truly a fallen Jedi, not quite the scale of Anakin, as shown when he arrives, and it is a complete mood changer. Vader's appearance is wrought with this cloud of just absolute darkness. Her anger seemed more of a dull candle to the blinding light that was his. My point is, Disney has pushed out this character and in an attempt to bar criticism from it, has labeled anyone that dislikes the character racist. Or at least, that's kind of what they're implying, right? So I'll specify that I think Third Sister is just not a very rounded character right now. She has no real motivation that would surprise me. I imagine that she was probably one of these Jedi and feels that Obi-Wan has in some way failed her.
She chops off the hand of someone who is speaking up and later threatens to kill Anakin's half-brother, and is about to go through with it too before another Inquisitor calls it off. This scene is just jarring, and I don't understand the place it has, unless it serves solely to show Obi-Wan that the Inquisitors are here, they're real, and they are harming people. But later on, I will explain specifically why I find this scene confusing, because it doesn't really fall into place until later. We once more pass over to Leia, who's waiting the arrival of her cousins alongside the rest of her family. There's some strangeness to the Alderaan royalty here that I just don't understand. Senator Organa is concerned about slave labor and issues, but his fellow royals do not seem to be concerned about that at all and are rather just happy that the Empire is finally paying them. So I guess politics are universal. Leia has another scene where she is just odd. Her cousin belittles her, suggesting that the possibility that she is not actually of royal blood, which confuses me because I would assume that even the rumor of that would uproot just about everything, and this child seems privy to that information. Leia then psychologically analyzes him, suggesting that his penance for being mean and cruel is just a cry for attention because he just wants his father to like him. I feel like I don't need to explain why this scene is weird, but I will just because. I don't think 10-year-olds can't be smart. But I definitely do not think a 10-year-old should be capable of complex thought to this level. If she had taken offense or shown some chink in her polished princess armor and became concerned about who she was, I would be inclined to believe it. Instead, Leia is confrontational, intelligent, and unwavering, but only as long as the dialogue demands it. This character will, later on, make incredibly dumb decisions that are in direct contrast to this level-headed, smart young lady thing they are attempting to write here. I hope that translates well. This character, again, feels as though it was written by someone that has never actually experienced childhood. I think it would have been more beneficial to just have this actress react in a way that was authentic to certain lines. Sure, it might have been more difficult to film, but it would have passed as semi-believable. It would have actually seemed like a child. While Leia is psychoanalyzing someone who is bullying her, Luke is pretending he is a starfighter. I believe one of these children actually appears to be 10 years old. Can you guess which one? Leia once more prances off into the distance to run to her favorite tree, only to find that some shady-looking, bright shirt-wearing man is standing there waiting for her. And she takes quite a while to notice that he's there. She runs very, very close to him without looking, I guess. Not one, but 3 separate goons. What follows is a real implication of Alderaan's terrible security, especially for royalty, and the sheer incompetence of these mercenaries. They struggle to catch Leia. They struggle to keep up with Leia, a 10-year-old girl who is running very goofily, and they comedically can't get past a branch and a bush, and it's just, this is hands down the most ridiculous scene in this entire series so far, and I don't know why they couldn't have just had her get captured like immediately. I don't mean to be too overly confident, but I'm pretty sure most adult men can run down a 10-year-old girl. That feels so fucking weird to say, but it's true. I can beat most 10-year-olds in a foot race, I guarantee. Eventually they do catch her after like this Benny Hill type sequence. Organa hails Obi-Wan Kenobi, a hidden Jedi, with the request to help him find his missing daughter. I don't even know how these 3 incompetent goons managed to get off-world, let alone past any security, but if they didn't, the plot wouldn't have happened, so I guess it needed to happen. Obi-Wan initially refuses until he witnesses the dead Jedi hanging over the city, and Organa manages to track him down. A bit of guilt-tripping, and Obi-Wan is on board with the idea of saving Leia. He recovers his lightsaber, unburying it, and makes haste for the nearest starport. Part 2 begins a bit more lackluster than Part 1. Obi-Wan ventures to a criminal cesspool of a planet with the hopes of tracking down Leia. While there, he encounters a former 501st trooper who is now a beggar in the streets. A little too accurate. After some mindless wandering, Obi-Wan is taken to a quote-unquote Jedi who appears to be helping families escape the tyranny for a small fee. In reality, this Jedi is a con man, while helping people escape, is also doing so with the sole purpose of making money, and I actually kind of like this character. He's pretty funny, he's pretty amusing, his use of magnets and stuff, it's a pretty decent character. After a slight back and forth, Obi-Wan Kenobi is back on track with finding Leia, and after mixing a couple chemicals together in a thug hideout, manages to locate Leia. However, the Leia he discovers is actually a decoy set up by the 3 thugs. It is revealed that the 3rd sister is the one that ordered them to kidnap Leia in order to bait Obi-Wan into the open. It works, however, the 3 thugs once again appear to be wholly incompetent, and Obi-Wan manages to slip their collective grasp by getting them all high. Yeah, I didn't misspeak there. He gets them all high. He then goes on to guess where Leia is, and this time actually finds her, though she has since escaped her bound state and assaults him. Obi-Wan Kenobi manages to reason with her after telling her that he was sent by her father. 3rd sister arrives to find all of her henchmen absolutely tripping balls, and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Leia are nowhere to be found. Why do I keep saying Obi-Wan Kenobi? The head Inquisitor goes on a rant about how the third sister is essentially scum, and now that Obi-Wan is here, he is going to take over and is going to be taking all the credit for the capture. Third sister responds by putting out an APB on Obi-Wan, which alerts almost everyone on the planet, including fake Jedi from earlier, that Obi-Wan is there and he has a bounty on his head, and it's a big one. Obi-Wan manages to find a beeping holo device that broadcasts very clearly that he is a wanted bounty. Leia, upon seeing this, almost completely disregards any logical sense and deduces that Obi-Wan must be a criminal, and she runs away from him, which prompts him to chase after her, constantly screaming her name. For your pleasure, I will count the number of times this happens. Now, once again, I don't know why Obi-Wan is struggling to keep up with a 10-year-old who runs really awkwardly, but here we are. This whole chase scene is just completely ridiculous, and it's the second one so far in the series, and I just don't like it. But this also circles back to my point that Leia makes an incredibly dumb decision that is not motivated by fear, but seemingly motivated by only the plot. They were safe, and she needed to make them unsafe so that the rest of the story could happen. Meanwhile, third sister is standing on the rooftops like Batman, apparently just waiting for any sign of Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan, while chasing Leia, becomes cornered on a roof, and third sister sees in the distance the shooting. She then vaults from her position and performs several awkward parkour stunts while seemingly in full sprint towards this engagement. My only complaint about this scene is, keep this in mind, this is exactly how far away she was from Obi-Wan, and she is sprinting this whole time. Leia attempts to clear a massive roof jump and fails, only to barely catch herself. Obi-Wan seemingly reconnects himself with the Force to prevent her from dying, which instantly convinces her that he was telling the truth. The fake Jedi arrives to help Obi-Wan and Leia escape, giving them directions to a ship that is leaving soon. After all this has happened, third sister finally arrives. Now, I'm not saying any small amount of time has passed. A lot of things have happened, and I mean a lot, like a full-blown conversation. This whole time, third sister was in the process of ruthlessly trying to get to that fight because she knew it was Obi-Wan. She arrives far too late, and the fake Jedi is there to stop her. Not only does she not kill him, but she also uses the Force to pull the exact location of Obi-Wan from his mind after noticing he knew where a Jedi was. This just circles back, again, makes no sense. Recall in part 1, she was standing in front of Anakin's half-brother who had just had a conversation with Obi-Wan, who was a couple feet off to the side, and third sister was unable to deduce anything. Now she only needs a vague idea and a raise of a hand to get exact coordinates of where someone is going. Leia then gives Obi-Wan a speech that makes him reminisce about Padme, and again, this is a 10-year-old who flip-flops between whimsical and witty to completely brain-dead and right back to witty. As long as the plot demands she is smart, she is smart. As long as the plot needs something to go wrong, she will do something wrong. But of course, third sister has tracked them down using the Force GPS, and Obi-Wan immediately hides from her in a very big, almost entirely empty warehouse. She can apparently sense that he is there the whole time. He doesn't really do anything. He looks almost completely scared to even activate his lightsaber and confront her. She is the sole entity of evil standing between him and escaping, and he is a veteran, a Jedi Master, one of the greatest Jedi to have ever lived. I don't understand why Obi-Wan does nothing here. I get it. He's not the same as he used to be. Things have changed. But this is just... I don't feel like this is Obi-Wan, a wise master. This feels like a coward, like he's afraid to do anything that might threaten his life. This feels like the circle back to how Disney portrayed Luke as a callous old man willing to kill his own student out of fear. I don't think this is Obi-Wan. The Jedi may have fallen, but Obi-Wan hasn't given up hope. He even says that he plans to train Luke as a new generation of Jedi, which would almost certainly put the two of them in danger. Somehow, third sister can't figure out where Obi-Wan is, despite him being right there, and the only ship he could take being right there. The head Inquisitor arrives and pretty much insults third sister again and again before claiming that he was going to capture Obi-Wan. Third sister then just kills him in like a really dumb way. She just kind of goes stab, and while Obi-Wan escapes, third sister screams that she will find him, and that's the end of the second part. Now, I hated this. The first couple minutes of this show in general were really good. The Jedi being attacked, Obi-Wan trying to live his simple life. But this just missed the mark completely for me. I don't like Leia's character at all, which is strange for me because in the original trilogy, Leia was one of my favorite characters. I don't think bringing back an old hero and pairing them up with a cute sidekick that they need to rescue is a foolproof formula. This worked with The Mandalorian because Grogu served no purpose other than being extremely cute in most scenes, and his greater influence on the story is explained, but never really through himself. The Mandalorian and Grogu are both original creations, so we have no assumptions about their fate. They could live or they could die. We don't know where they are going to end up or what they are going to do. Leia, on the other hand, we all know the importance of the character. We know that she cannot die just yet, as we know Obi-Wan will not die just yet. So there are zero stakes. We know where these characters end up, so there is nothing between the two of them. If we add newer characters to Obi-Wan's journey, maybe we could come to care about them and feel a sense of stake. Something like, well, why haven't we seen this character before? Do they die? Are they some tragic backstory for Obi-Wan? Is this a cautionary tale about him not trusting people or being aware that he shouldn't tell people he's a Jedi because it has a chance to backfire, that the world around him is changing, that Jedis are becoming less and less accepted? But instead, we are given an Obi-Wan that just seems to suffer from PTSD. Obi-Wan was afraid to even use his lightsaber. There was not a single lightsaber duel in the entire premiere. That's 2 out of 6 episodes with no lightsaber duels. If Obi-Wan had fought off Third Sister and only barely managed to escape, it would have shown me that in the last decade, Obi-Wan is rusty and hasn't fought. He isn't used to combat anymore because it's not a part of his life anymore. But clearly Third Sister is. It would have made the next encounter interesting, instead of having Obi-Wan scared to fight and me now annoyed that the character essentially has done nothing. If Third Sister and the head Inquisitor fought, it would have shown me how strong Third Sister really was, and that maybe she was being underestimated in her strength. Seemingly, she is on the lower tier of the scale. She is the least strong Inquisitor. Instead, she just casually stabs him and seemingly usurps the role. Or she might just claim that Obi-Wan had done it, further incentivizing them to hunt down Obi-Wan. Either way, this could have just been a considerably poor decision by whoever decided this would be the cliffhanger we left off on. Obi-Wan was afraid to fight. I feel like almost even a single episode premiere might have been better because the ending of the first episode wasn't that bad. It was Obi-Wan preparing to go on his journey. There were so many ways to pan this out, and the only real highlight of the episode is the promise of Vader and Obi-Wan meeting and potentially fighting again. But honestly, at this point, I'm afraid that that will also just be a complete letdown. I don't really know what I was expecting with an Obi-Wan series, but part of me just wanted to see him make his stay on Tatooine, survive, and awkwardly try and live out his life in hopes that Luke would grow up to be something more. But the very beginning of this show does somewhat illustrate that, but it almost immediately sidelines it for a let's go rescue the Risk Girl, you owe me this kind of plot. I give it probably a 5 out of 10.